Hey everybody, it was within a matter of hours of recording this week's episode that we learned of the passing of Mr. James Earl Jones. It's always an odd, different type of grief whenever someone passes that you don't know, that you don't literally know, but you watch them perform in a movie that you've loved for most of your life. Because like I said, you don't know them, but in many ways it kind of feels like you do. Obviously, Mr. Jones left a legacy that will be remembered for a very, very long time, not only with his performance as the voice of Darth Vader, but in so many other movies. Look them up, check them out if you haven't seen them. I think it's really wonderful and very meaningful to see all the outpouring of love for Mr. Jones on social media. Should we all be so lucky to have that many people think well of us when our time comes. But before we have an episode that will mostly be us talking about James Earl Jones and his legacy, and that's next week. In the meantime, the biggest thing that I think it's important to remember about James Earl Jones is that he was a young man with a stutter, and he overcame that stutter to go on to have probably one of the most iconic voices in the history of Western cinema. So let's not forget that you can overcome your weaknesses and you can make them strengths in many ways. That's probably why he had such a strong tone to his voice that was always so measured, because he had to have that. But anyway, rest in peace, Mr. Jones.
Hey everyone, I think Matt kind of said everything that needs to be said on it, but I just want to add in my 2 cents that, Tony Award winner and voice of my childhood at least, has passed. He will always be remembered in our hearts, in our minds, and in our media. You will still hear his voice, and, what a career, what a guy, a class act through and through, and he will be missed. But I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and look forward to next week when we dive a little bit deeper.
The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast. Hello there, and welcome to The Force of Others. I'm Zachary Owen Turner.
I'm Matt Poitner.
And welcome back. We're episode 7. We have a nice, huge episode to talk about a lot of things, mainly about Star Wars Outlaws and things that have happened in the news this week. No guest this week, but hopefully one next week or the following. Matt, how was your Star Wars week this week?
My week was good, and my Star Wars week was also good. For the first time in a bit, Star Wars actually found me in a way that wasn't this podcast. The first one was tying into our episode last week with Tabletop Empire. I got to play the Star Wars role-playing game again. My group got together on Saturday, and we played for a couple hours. It was a very emotionally traumatic session, but it was very fun. Every now and then, Game Masters, you have to put your players through it. And it'll make them better people, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, but the other way that it found me was kind of funny. We've talked about it before. Zach and I are both theater people. I'm more of a director nowadays. But the show that I'm directing right now is Hunchback of Notre Dame. And when you're directing actors, to put it simply, you never want to tell them exactly how to say a line, right? You don't want to do their job for them. For anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about. But you want to lead them to where you want them to get to. And one of the actors in this show, Brian Lawson, he sent the question last week and the question this week, is a huge lifelong Star Wars fan. And he is playing the villain. He's playing Frollo in this one, right? And it's this part where he's like, I am the archdeacon of this cathedral, blah, blah, blah. And so pulling on things that, that the actor will understand what you're saying, I just looked at him and I was like, Brian, I am the Senate. And he was like, got it. It wasn't intentional. I was like, wow, I'm actually going to use Star Wars in my day job. So you never know when this stuff is going to find you. But what about you, Zach? How was your Star Wars week?
Yeah, it was great. I got bored at work, not bored at work. I had some downtime at work, and I bartended to pay the bills, and so I remade a version of the Port in a Storm cocktail from Galaxy's Edge, which is also in one of the canon books. That is it's the drink that all of the top pilots can drink, but only them can drink it because their adrenaline is so high from flying, and it's supposed to be like the strongest drink of the strongest drink. It's like it's a rum, port, ginger beer cocktail, but it was pretty good. I basically took the Galaxy's Edge recipe, modified a little bit, and then and made it. So that was pretty cool. And then I bought Star Wars Outlaws this week, so I have my big review for everyone, just a few weeks late.
It's okay. I will have a big review of that in approximately 3.5 months. So
yeah.
You're more on time than me. But all right, Zach, so in the world of new Star Wars media that is always coming, with the most recent edition being Star Wars Outlaws, what is your Star Wars Outlaws experience for the first 2 days?
Yeah, so I've played about 6 to 7 hours so far, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I think it's really fun. They do some cool stuff that that we haven't seen before, at least. But we've talked about on this podcast before how we want to see, underworld, dark, like 1313 teas and all that. That's what this game kind of is, at least so far for me. And I'm really enjoying it. I mean, you play Kves, who is a great, kind of Han Solo, plucky, newbie smuggler, newbie gambler, newbie, scoundrel, I guess would be the name. Like at one point, this is very, very minor spoilers, but you go up to someone, they're like, I have a job for you, and you're like, cool, yeah, well, half of the payment up front, and they go, I don't know you, you'll get the payment when it's done. And you go, and she goes, yeah, or that's what I meant. Or something like that, where she's just like, truly trying to make her way through, bluffing most of the time, which is what you want from your protagonist, scoundrel. Other things that I really love about it, it kind of redeems Canto Bight for me. Minor spoilers, but the first scene, the first sequence, I guess, Kves was born and raised on Canto Bight. In Canto Bight. So you get to see the slums-ish of Canto Bight, and you get to see that minor criminal organization there, and you see the Fathier racing, which kind of redeems that too. You're like, oh cool, so this is a thing that many people bet on throughout the galaxy, even before Last Jedi. So huge swing to be like, hey, you remember that thing from Last Jedi that even the people who like that movie hate? Yeah. Let's start there. But it works. It's really cool. It's a fun area. You get you get a little bit of the backstory in that first sequence, but you also get your mentor, who's this grizzled older Zabrak, who runs the bar that you live above. Great relationships, great acting. Has an amazing soundtrack as well, I will say. I was playing and my partner came in and she was like, what is this song? This is great. And she literally Shazammed it because it was a fun song. Cool. Other things it has going for it, Nyx. Nyx is the little axolotl looking thing. He is 1, the cutest, 2, the most helpful companion. And it proves that you don't need a droid to have a really cool sidekick in Star Wars. Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order and all that, you have BD-1, who's great, and he is also very useful. And a lot of the same mechanics are used as BD-1, but just having this little, cute little monster character is really, one, endearing, but also, there's a thing where you can have Nyx go distract a stormtrooper or guard or whatever, and he walks over in front of them, and then he goes, and he possums, he possums. He falls on his back and goes, ah, ah, he's he's died, and they come over and they're like, what? And then they go, get out of here, you know, and like shoo him away. But then you can like sneak behind him or you can knock him out. Also, in true Ubisoft fashion, if you like any of the Assassin's Creed games, you're going to like this game. It has a lot of similar things, just like there's a lot of stealth, but you can also go in like guns a-blazing. But guns a-blazing will often affect you're basically like playing the different syndicates against each other between the Hutts, the Crimson Dawn, and the Pikes. And you literally, like, after your second mission, you get a choice between the Pikes and the Crimson Dawn on who you want to, like, give the information to, and it affects your story down the way. So me being a, solo lover, and I even have, like, a Crimson Dawn necklace, I was like, cool, I'm going to help out the Crimson Dawn. And then I'm on a Pike planet, so it's made everything on that planet harder because my reputation is going down with the Pikes, but going up with Crimson Dawn. And so you're like playing this like, okay, I'm going to be in favor with this person and then out of favor with this person. And then maybe I'll be back in favor with this person. So you're really truly like underworld, playing the different sides against each other. I did run into a few things with it, just to not love everything about it. There's like certain words that I was like, oh, like I ran into, like when they're on Canto Bight, they're like, oh, I have a police scanner. And I was like, police? I don't think I've ever heard police in Star Wars. I don't know what else you'd call it, which is where I was eventually like, whatever. But I was like, that's a weird word to hear in Star Wars. I don't know. I don't know what else you would call it though. Security.
Yeah, and police scanner communicates what it is, but I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I also the Kai, my partner, laughs at me all the time because the speeder is really cool. You get a speeder basically kind of off the bat to like go through this vast open worlds, and the speeder is very fast. And the speeder is not always very easy to see when a rock is coming up very fast. And then you will hit the rock, and then your character will go flying over the front end of the speeder, and then you will lose, like, 25% of your health bar, and you're like, oh, crap. So it's been a lot of me, like, running away from bandits, shooting behind me. Oh, crap, a rock. Goosh.
Well, and as that's just sticking with tradition on this podcast of us... Well, at least me and Lance not being great at video games where we have to drive stuff. So it's good to know you've joined us on poor piloting in video games.
Oh, there's a mission that I just did where you had to go into a Pike area and like plant a bomb and explode it. And I I think I had to do that mission 6 times because I just kept on like not stealthing right and then alerting the entire base and then getting shot at and dying.
Well, I had a question about that. One of the stories that's been going around is how hard the stealth is. Do you find it to be, like, punishing?
I don't find it to be punishing. I find it to be kind of world accurate. Like, if you're going into a Pike run... Like, this is very minor spoilers. It's all within the first 6 hours, right? But, like, it was basically you were doing a job for the Hutts, and the Pikes had stolen some of the Hutts, like, animals to, like, poach. And so you're going in to, like, release the animals and blow up the facility and, like, get a data disk or something like that. And so, rightfully so, there's a lot of security at this area. So it is hard to stealth, but it is not impossible, and it makes you think about it in a real-world way, where it's like, okay, I'm one tiny smuggler who has no experience at all with blowing up. She literally goes, yeah, that bomb, I know how to use that bomb. She doesn't know how to use, like, she's like, I don't know what that bomb is. And I think as you progress in the game, it will hopefully get easier. But you also, like, you get gun upgrades, too, and so... There's a different way of like, okay, cool, like if I don't want to stealth, I can just go in and shoot everyone. My reputation with the Pikes will go down, but, that's kind of, I'm also blowing up a Pike base, so you kind of expect it to happen anyway. It is hard, but it's not impossible, and it does make you think about it differently. You're like, okay, cool, like I need to disable the alarms. everything on Canto Bight I was able to do without dying. So I think it's just the first world, Toshara is the world. Beautiful design of a world, too. Like, has this giant, like, orange, like, almost looks like calcified clay around the mountains and stuff like that. Really cool design. But, yeah, I think the stealth is, I mean, it is tough, but it's not impossible. The only thing about this game is they don't have the sliding scale like Jedi Fallen Order does, where you can like make it easier.
Wait, oh no, so it's all one difficulty setting?
It's all one difficulty
Oh
setting.
God.
So you just got to play the game.
I'm one of those shameless ones that when I play a video game, I get very stressed in real life. So when I play a video game, sometimes I just want God mode.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
But the last thing I'll say about it, I saw somebody else, some other news organizations review, and I'll kind of quote them in this. I think this game proves that you don't need a lightsaber to have a really good Star Wars story, and that is not Battlefront, you know? Because even Battlefront, it had a good story, but it wasn't like, oh, this is a great game. I actually really enjoy this game. I think it's really fun. I think the characters are really well developed, and at least so far. And I'm having a great time. So I know it's getting a lot of hate, but I think that's kind of the Star Wars way of, you know, this isn't Luke Skywalker, so I'm going to hate it.
Well, this isn't Luke, or this isn't Anakin Skywalker as the prequel generation grows up. I think that is kind of the universe that we're in right now in terms of Star Wars hate, but I think that a lot of that is just that more people have microphones than ever before.
Yeah.
Including us.
But yeah, if you're on the fence about getting the game, I know it's a little pricey. I think that is also, I think the economy is part of the reason it's not, you know, it's quote unquote selling well.
Yeah.
But it's great. It's gonna, like, I think I'm gonna sink at least 100 hours into this game.
Cool.
Just because I'm not even off the, like, first, I mean, the first planet is very tutorial. We're gonna get you off and get you into the game. So I'm really on the first planet after that. And, I mean, I get it. I get, like, it's long. I also, my heart goes out to those people that lost 12 hours of gameplay.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that's really the reason it's probably not selling as well, because people are like, well, that sucks. Quote unquote selling as well. But yeah, my heart goes out to them because I'm like, oh wow, I'm pretty, like, I've done a lot. So to have to do that all again would be, especially if you play the games like I play. I play very, I think it's the BioShock way, is where you search every nook and cranny to find every little, like, coin and or trinket and stuff like that. So my heart goes out to you guys.
Well, it's interesting that you said that. You said there was a review that said this game proves you don't need a lightsaber to have a good Star Wars story. What company is it that does Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order? What group is that?
I think it. I thought it was Ubisoft as well, but I don't think it is.
I think
it's EA, Electronic Arts.
Wild.
Yeah.
They did something good. Okay, anyway. But when EA approached Lucasfilm or Lucasfilm Games or whatever about the game that became originally Jedi Fallen Order, initially Lucasfilm pushed back about making a Jedi game. They were like, do you want to do like a bounty hunter game or a smuggler game? Because gamifying the Force can be difficult and get into weird stuff. And they were like, no, we want to do Jedi. And they were like, okay, fine. Or it was something like that. I might be getting the story wrong. Either that, or it was the opposite, where they were expecting something else. But either way, Lucasfilm has been open to a smuggler or bounty hunter game for a good long while. And I hope this game does well. But like we've alluded to, it quote unquote not selling well. These headlines have been going around, and I've been seeing things as, like, literally as dire as, like, Star Wars Outlaws is selling poorly. We can go on and on about clickbait, whether or not there's any truth to it, but so let's compare some numbers of like game units sold. So Cyberpunk 2077 had sold 25 million copies as of October 2023, and that was when it had been out for about 3 years. Helldivers 2 surpassed 12 million copies in 3 months. And then I guess this is a new one, Black Myth Wukong 10
Yeah,
million units in a week. What were you going to say?
Oh, this is the game that everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
So 10 million units in a week, Black Myth Wukong, where's Outlaws at? 5.5 million copies sold. Now
Well, that's projected sales until March.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so maybe
But we don't have the official numbers, so.
Oh.
And a lot of these numbers are also like, there was a thing that was like 50. It's selling 50% less than Jedi Survivor did, which was a second game in a franchise that was already critically acclaimed. This game is also, I will say, critically well received. It has like a 90% approval rating amongst critics. But that was on physical copies versus digital copies. And we're in a digital age. Like, nobody's buying physical games. So I would say take all of these like with a grain of salt for how many numbers are actually selling.
Yeah, I mean, we say it before. If you put Star Wars in an article title, it's going to get clicks. It's, people are going to engage with it, especially if it's negative. And that's not to say that, Star Wars sucks or that people want Star Wars to suck. It's just that fear and hate and negativity sells. It's like, ooh, who messed up? So I can feel better about the failures in my own life. But either way, 5.5 million copies, whether that is projected or accurate or whatever, if we are in an era where 5.5 million copies is something not doing well, wow. You know what I mean? But anyway, speaking of how much content is coming, I'm going to toss it back over to you, dude.
Yeah. So Disney has announced that they are going to reduce their Star Wars streaming shows to about once per year to go with Bob Iger's quality over quantity. So we got this from thedirect.com. But yeah, that's basically it. There's been rumors of this for a while, of reducing the amount of streaming shows. I mean, this year alone, we have 2 coming out? Which is not...
When it's all said and done, yeah, the Acolyte happened, and then Skeleton Crew's coming, and not for live action. That's it. Yeah.
Next year, I think we're only getting Andor, and if this is gonna continue, then that means Ahsoka will probably be 2026, the one show that we get. But does that mean that The Mandalorian is only movies now? That's the real question that I have from that. So, what are your thoughts on it, Matt?
My knee-jerk reaction is that it reminds me of going back to Solo: A Star Wars Story, where originally Disney said they were going to put out one Star Wars movie every year, starting with The Force Awakens, and then Solo was not a blockbuster, and they backed off, and they said, we are seeing that we need to wait to do things. And then I don't know that they were ever intending to go full all in on Disney Plus. It was just that The Mandalorian became a big cultural event, and they went, okay, Disney Plus, let's go. Everybody, make everything for Disney Plus. But then, like we've been talking about, quality over quantity. When you're putting out a bunch of something, not all of it's necessarily going to be great. As to whether or not how I feel about this, I'm whiny and greedy, and I want more Star Wars, so I don't necessarily like this. I prefer the buffet style that we have been getting, because quote unquote good or bad, it is pure greediness, but there is more, and that the franchise and universe is thriving because we're getting more content. That's just how it goes. Now, the downside of that is all of the when somebody doesn't like something, they will talk about it way more than if they do. So I think they're trying to, the mouse giveth and the mouse taketh away. They're trying to create a need for Star Wars for when it for when it returns. Now, that being said, I don't think that just because there's less coming out, that means it's all going to be better what comes out. I don't necessarily agree with that at all. I think that what Kathleen Kennedy has proven that she does is that not only is she the most successful film producer of all time, I don't care what anybody says, she is. Look up her track record before Star Wars. We're going to TikTok this just to get rage. So she is a film producer. She is not necessarily a storyteller.
Yeah.
She is good at saying, what do you want to do? That sounds great. Do your version of that. Like if it passes Dave Filoni and everybody else and they're like, yeah, this sounds good. She's like, great. And then she gives them money and lets them go.
Yeah.
So if you get another show like The Acolyte, that's like kind of a different take and people like it could just be as simple as people don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not like more time is going to make it better. It might make the effects better. It might make the production quality slightly better. But whether or not a show is received well is the writing. So there's my novel response to all this. Zach, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree. I love having more Star Wars content. You know, I don't think this means we'll get less animation. I think this will just really kind of affect the live action stuff. Which, you know, it's been nice to at least have 2 shows a year, just to like have something fun to watch. That's Star Wars. Now, if they reduce the amount of streaming to like put out another Star Wars movie, that would be cool, you know, because I find that I think the movies see more review process than the shows necessarily have been. So hopefully, you know, if they're slowing it down, hopefully it means that, you know, it gives the writers more time and that the story can be really fleshed out. Also, I mean, Star Wars fans love to theorize and they love to, I mean, look at our podcast, you know, like we love to theorize. We love to talk about the minute details and the, you know, look at that tiny alien in the back. He was so, you know, cool and weird. And that thing looks like a meatball with tentacles, but I still love it. You know, so I don't think it's a bad thing. I will always want more Star Wars, but the time in between the movies when they first came out, you know, you had a year in between movies and it generated buzz and it generated want. So I see the fiscal move here, which is cool. Make them want more Star Wars, and then no matter what, they're going to watch it. You know, that's what it is. They're like, okay, if we don't give them what they want all the time, then when we do give them something, whether or not they like it or not, they're going to watch it and we will get our money back. So I think that's the money move here. So I hope it creates, you know, more Star Wars that's really, really good, and less Star Wars that's like, okay, cool, that was fun. I'm never gonna watch Star Wars. What is that one? Resistance. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know. But like, or I probably will one day. But you know, I hope there's less kind of that in between, and it just makes everything better. But there's no guarantee of that, so we'll see what happens.
Well, and it's something that every now and then you'll see Star Wars is dead. Disney's admitting that they killed it. That's why they're backing off now. And it's like, I don't think that's true.
You don't build a giant theme park and then
I mean, you know, like we've said, I think we both kind of prefer what I call the buffet style of just the more because again, when there's more coming, it is more likely that the next thing that comes is going to be your new favorite thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about animation. We don't know what the next animated show is. I have a theory, but I'll save it for later. So, you know, anyway, I want more Star Wars live action. So, but we can take some time to celebrate what we have. In December, it's the 5th anniversary of Star Wars live action television. So, we'll talk about that when those dates come. But okay. So moving on to the next news story here. I missed this. I think I heard about it and then thought, for some reason, that I didn't want to talk about it on the podcast, probably because I was half asleep. I don't know, it was dumb, because this is cool to me. But apparently, Keanu Reeves almost played Master Soul on The Acolyte. To be fair... Whoa. Sources at Lucasfilm stress that the actor was never officially offered the part, but that they are huge fans of his work, and apparently there was some kind of like almost flirting here and there. I think I saw something where Leslie Headland said that she got everybody that she wanted as her first choice, including Lee Jung-jae. But the final quote here was, Lucasfilm remains high on the actor whose interest in the role has been noted internally. So they were like, okay, he would like to come play. But Zach, what are your thoughts on Neo almost being in Star Wars?
I mean, this is always the rumor, right? You know, like, they're like, Keanu Reeves is going to play Revan. Keanu Reeves is going to play this Sith. Keanu Reeves is going to play... Anytime there's a new Star Wars, Keanu Reeves' name gets thrown around. Which, you know, we're in the Keanu-sons, you know? Like, he's... At one point, this actor was seen as, like, a really bad actor, and now he's, you know, seen as a great actor. Or at least, you know, one that is you know, profitable for the market. I love Keanu Reeves. I think he's always fun. I also love that he's kind of like taking the piss out of himself lately. There was that rom-com that he was in that he played himself, and he's so funny in that movie. It's where you get the meme of him on headphones eating, and he goes crying. If you've seen that GIF or that meme, that's from that movie. But he literally plays himself, and he is hilarious because he's just playing like the most ridiculous version of himself. I love Keanu Reeves. I think it would have been a very interesting, different take on Master Soul. I'm glad we got Lee Jung-jae. I thought he brought a lot of gravitas to that role. Not that Keanu wouldn't have, but I think it just would have been different, and I think it would have brought a different spotlight to the show that would have been more about Keanu and less about the show. Just because anytime you bring a big actor into Star Wars, everybody's like, oh, I want to see about that actor. I mean, the original cast of, you know, A New Hope were nobodies, and, you know, when they did when they started the new trilogy, they cast not people that were not huge. You know, Oscar Isaacs, I think, was the biggest member of that core cast, and he was doing some stuff, but he wasn't the huge hit that he is now. So I think bringing that kind of star power, quote unquote, into the franchise could have been really cool, but also could have like just completely changed the entire story. You know. Because when you bring in somebody who, not that I don't think Keanu would have done this. He's proven that he will do little cameos for free for voice acting. Like he does a lot of voice acting that he just like throws in and like will like literally be like, yeah, you don't have to pay me. I just want to have fun. So, but like if it had been another star actor, they would have been like, oh well, I want my character to do more of this. You know, like there's certain writers that their characters come in. Like The Rock can never lose a battle. Yeah, it's written in his contract. Yeah. You know, so like if you bring The Rock into Star Wars, he can't be a villain. You know, or he can, but he has to win. You know, so I think it would have been interesting. I think Keanu's a great actor. I think I see the want of him playing Master Soul. I can see him playing that role. But ultimately, I'm glad we got Lee Jung-jae. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of that. The first thing that stuck out to me, of course, which is probably would have been the story that would have gone everywhere, was we almost had Neo and Trinity enter the Star Wars trilogy at enter the Star Wars universe at the exact same time, which would have brought into or tied straight into what I said earlier on the podcast at some point. That it kind of made me laugh that the Star Wars, the movie that came out in 1999, near the same time as The Phantom Menace, The Matrix, there was a movie that a lot of like kind of the grumpy fans were like, why isn't Star Wars like this? So if you had gotten both of them in there at the same time, it would have been interesting. I think it's funny that Keanu's look is very much what they went with for Master Soul, the like kind of tall, skinny-ish, long dark hair guy, with the hair out of his face. It's basically that look, which is probably why when they were like, who knows, but they made that was just what Leslie saw as the look of Soul, or somebody on the show, the samurai type with the long dark hair. I think you are 100% on the money with the not casting recognizable actors. That's something that George Lucas was always very intentional about. With the point of view characters, with the main characters, he would always cast relatively unknowns. Like Mark Hamill had been on a couple sitcom guest spots, and like Carrie Fisher's claim to fame was that she was Debbie Reynolds' kid. That was about it. She had been in a couple movies that were like, look, I'm edgy. I'm not like my mom, but not very much at all, because George didn't want the audience to see, Keanu Reeves in Star Wars. He wanted them to see Master Soul, right?
Yeah.
But he would consistently, in both trilogies, cast a known performer in the role of the mentor, in the role of the generation that had come before. In the original trilogy, Alec Guinness was an Oscar-winning legend, and Peter Cushing had played Van Helsing a million times, right? And then with the
which is so
prequels,
funny because he's so Dracula coded.
Well, and that's the thing. It's I talked about a couple episodes ago my most wanted, our most wanted Star Wars canceled projects. There were rumors that had they kept going with a way earlier version of episodes 7, 8, and 9 in the 80s and 90s, that Christopher Lee was going to show up decades sooner in Star Wars, because George just wanted to keep casting known people as the villains. But it would have been cool. I would love to get Keanu in Star Wars. Everybody still thinks he's going to play Revan. I think it's I truly don't know why they want that. Is it because that Keanu acts in such a just kind of faceless way that they could still project whatever they wanted onto Revan? It's probably also that, and he's tall, he's got a cool look, and he's a martial artist. Yeah. But either way, I would have liked to see it. But we love Lee Jung-jae. His performance is pretty much everybody, whether they even if they didn't like the Acolyte. Basically, everybody seems to like Master Soul.
Yeah.
So, what we got worked out. But okay, so moving on to kind of and I'm gonna keep the reins here for a second, because I want to pitch this to you as the more acting focused member of this podcast. Ethan Hawke gave a really, really interesting little kind of monologue here about basically fantasy movies versus art house slice of life movies.
Yeah.
And I love Ethan Hawke as a performer. I love him as a speaker. Look up his TED Talk on why human creativity matters. It came out at the height of the pandemic, and it is something that I will from time to time show my graduating theater students. When I was like, once you get to the point that you think that what you're doing is a waste of time, just watch this. You might feel better about what it is that you want to do with your life. But anyway, he was speaking at an acting masterclass during the Venice Film Festival, and here is the quote. If you go see Harry Potter or Star Wars or something, which I've seen a million times, and I love them, but when they are over, I always feel slightly disappointed that I'm not a wizard or not a Jedi. And I walk through my life thinking, I wish I were a Jedi. And then when you see a Richard Linklater film, you walk out feeling, well, I've done that. I've met a person. I've connected with another human being, and that was important. That was magic. It's kind of like that old Zen quote, you don't have to walk on water, you get to walk on earth. Isn't that amazing? I feel that's what Richard Linklater's movies do, is remind you that it's a miracle that we walk on earth and that we breathe at all. So, Zach, what are your thoughts on completely different types of art and how they make you feel as a human being?
I love Ethan Hawke. I do. I love his movies. I do. I know I love everything, guys. I get it. But I've been a fan ever since Gattaca. And he's done genre films. He's done Marvel. He was in Moon Knight. So he's not I think it's important here that he doesn't say he hates Star Wars. And sure, we all want to be Jedi. We all want to be wizards. And I get. Ethan Hawke is known as the actor's actor. Yes. He is so into the craft, and it's wonderful. It's really great, and I get what he's saying here. He's because art is supposed to be a reflection of society, and you want to see yourself and feel yourself in the art. So I get what he's saying. That being said, I'm a wizard, baby. I'm I'm a wizard in real life, okay? I create magic all the time with the people that I meet and the people that I talk to and the connections that you make in real life. I think it's just a perspective thing. Yes, we can't shoot, we can't force push or force grab the remote from the couch while we're watching TV. But I think it's different movies for different people. He's wanting to go, he's not wanting to. He does go see the movies and see them all. But there's a certain group of people that want to go see an art movie and, really connect and, feel the emotions of another human, which you can also do in genre films. But they want that real, just human story connection. And then there's people that go to movies for escapism and for fantasy and wanting to see a giant world that you'd never seen before. It's like reading books. There's some people that like reading, rom-coms, and there's some people that like reading, rom-coms in space on a dragon, So I get what he's saying. I think it's a fun quote. I still have massive respect for Ethan Hawke and all of the work he does. But at the end of the day, I don't feel disappointed when I leave Star Wars and Harry Potter. I feel jazzed, and I feel like I'm a wizard.
Right on. Well, and it's a quote that J.J. Abrams made leading up to Force Awakens. And I say it's a quote, and then I don't remember the exact quote, so I'm going to paraphrase. But he was talking about why he likes making genre movies, and it was something, he says when he was a kid and he was watching The Twilight Zone, that show sparked kind of a lifelong desire in him to tell personal, emotional stories that people could relate to in a genre setting. Because he was like, when you can do both, you can get the best of both worlds. You can give people escapism and then also give them something that they can relate to in their real lives. Obviously, it is much harder in many ways to literally relate to Luke Skywalker as he is using the Force to make the shot to destroy the Death Star, which is something we will never do, but we
Unless you're Tom Hanks. Not Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise.
Oh, sure, exactly, in Top Gun Maverick. But we can relate to standing on the hill in your backyard, looking up at the sunset and wishing you were anywhere other than where you are, right? Mm-hmm. Wishing you were able to go grow up and do what you want, but you got to wait. It's not time yet. So, best of both worlds. I do think it's an interesting quote. I thought it was kind of funny because ever since I was a kid, I've always had very little interest in slice of life movies, but I really appreciated the way that he pointed it here of just that it's a Zen thing of sometimes movies like this can remind you that even the mundane of your normal life is magic. So every now and then go watch a Richard Linklater movie and I guess quote Ferris Bueller, what is it? Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and smell the roses, you might just miss it. I don't think he says stop and smell the roses.
Doesn't he? Whatever. If you don't stop and look around a while,
that's what. Yeah,
it's the heart of the quote.
But so be where you're doing think about what you're doing while you're doing it. Stay present. Be here now, and it's important. I love Star Wars. I love all these things. I also love the real people in my life, but also, like Zach says, I'm a wizard, baby. I make magic. So, all right.
Next news item. Finally, Ewan McGregor is to receive a star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood, and Hayden Christensen is going to give one of the speeches, which is just, as a Star Wars fan, there's nothing that makes you happier than seeing Obi-Wan get his fame recognized. As a lifelong Ewan McGregor fan, I'm like, yeah, this should have happened 10 years ago. He never puts out a bad performance, and even if he does, there's still some truth in it. And just to have Hayden, I think Obi-Wan reuniting them after so long, I think it really reignited that friendship, and to have him give the speech, I think is just really, really sweet. It's like your Padawan giving your master a speech when they get onto the Jedi Council. You know, I'm overjoyed to see this. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's wholesome and fun and good. I'm curious. I have never been to Hollywood. I've never seen the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but it is no longer on that street, right? Hasn't it spilled out into like all the surrounding streets? And now it's like a whole neighborhood. The Hollywood Sidewalks of Fame. But yeah, no, it's adorable. It reminds me of a couple years ago when I think it was Mark Hamill got his and Harrison Ford gave the speech. Of course, it was sad, and they both mentioned that they wish that Carrie was still around to be there for that. And then I think Carrie got one within the next couple years. So yeah, it's cute. It's fun to get the Star Wars Force Bros together to honor each other. I don't know that Hayden Christensen will ever get one, but I hope that he comes back into acting. I don't want to take Ewan's moment and make it about Hayden, but I think we talked about last week that I'm pretty sure he's a goat farmer in Canada right now.
Yeah, he did one movie recently that was, I'm gonna be honest, wasn't great.
No.
But
but
it was still fun.
I think he's a better actor than people think. What I saw on Ahsoka was a guy that can act if given if given better direction and better material. I think he's a guy that absolutely can act. So, anyway. But I think it's adorable that they're going to be there, and then they should, if they're smart, they will fight with lightsabers on his star. Yeah. Or at least pose with lightsabers or something. It's going to happen, for sure. Mm-hmm. Anything else on that one, Zach?
No, I think it's a long time coming.
Right on.
I hope he sings. Ewan McGregor has such a great singing voice.
It was just the love in your heart. Yeah. I hope he sings.
He's got a great voice. The best compliment I ever received in my entire life. It was we both went to college together for music theater, and this person that I've never seen again came up to me. I was like, just because we had group auditions, and she came up. She's like, I just want to let you know you sound like Ewan McGregor, and I hugged her. It was such a beautiful compliment, and I've never seen her again. I don't know who it was, but yeah.
So was it
the universe?
Well, I was gonna say, was she like a major? Did she have a different degree or something?
I don't know. I don't know. It might be somebody I know that I just didn't remember who told me, but
you were just so taken aback.
I was like, really?
Well, see, it's funny. One of my vocal coaches in college made fun of me. Said, you sound too much like Ewan McGregor right now. Let's fix it. That's awesome. Well, right on. Okay, so moving on to the next deal. On September 2nd, 2014, 10 years ago, for those keeping track at home, the first new canon novel released for Star Wars, and that was A New Dawn, which was the story of how Kanan and Hera from Star Wars Rebels met, and that was the first major quote-unquote Disney canon Star Wars story. And before that, we'd had a couple short stories come out in Star Wars Insider. I believe the first one ever, here's my trivia for the day, was Blade Squadron. I haven't read it, but I just remember that title, Blade Squadron, for a short story in the Star Wars Insider magazine. Blade. But anyway, yeah, New Dawn came out 10 years ago, so we have officially reached 10 years of new canon stories. And contrary to popular belief, depending on what corner of the internet you are on, I do think it has been overall a good 10 years and not a bad 10 years. Like a lot of people will try to convince you of their opinion. So we're going to kind of gamify this like we like to do here. So Zach, sticking with exclusively novels, and neither Zach nor I have read everything, but we've read a lot. Zach, what is your favorite canon novel or novels? I'm cheating and I had to pick two, but what's your favorite?
I'm going to give some honorable mentions before I get to the one that has stuck with me the most. I think New Dawn is a great book, that first canon novel. There's some just cute loviness that you don't see from Rebels on their relationship between Kanan and Hera, because it's obvious that they love each other, and that last season it's very obvious. But there's like some great flirting in that first book. I really love all of the Thrawn books. I think they're really wonderful. I really liked Catalyst, which was the how they like make the Death Star laser book. And then my favorite though is this. I also have to shout out Ahsoka, because I think Ahsoka is a great book as well. But speaking of Ahsoka, Claudia Gray, before that book, wrote this wonderful novel called Lost Stars, which is one of my favorite books. I believe Lost Stars is also where that cocktail that I was talking about came from. Because I think
it comes from Bloodline.
Oh, is it Bloodline?
Yeah.
You're right.
Sorry.
Yep. Well, it's about two pilots that grow up on the same planet. It's kind of Romeo and Juliet-esque, where they both join the Imperial Flight Academy, and she chooses to go I'm going to be an Imperial. I'm going to, I believe in this. They helped my planet. We're going to like play the company line. And he sees all of the corruption of the Empire and is like, no, I got to get out. And he joins the rebels. And so you get to see the Galactic Civil War through two people who love each other, that can't be with each other because they fundamentally believe in two different like philosophies of life, of the Empire versus the Rebellion. Well, I won't spoil it because hopefully people hear this and they read it. But it's like they like see each other and they like realize. I think there's one point in the book where he's like, I know who's in that TIE fighter pilot. I know that move. I've flown with her so much. She's alive, And then it ends, just to give like a little spoiler, it ends at the Battle of Jakku. So if you want to see a story for the entire Galactic Civil War that's a love story about fighter pilots with, I think, no Jedi in it at all, it's a great little novel. And Claudia Gray's a great writer. So that's my favorite. What about you, Matt?
Well, kind of in similar fashion, we picked the same thing. So I have two that I could not choose between. One of them's Lost Stars. I'll sell the other one in a minute. But my honorable mention, there are a couple, but the one that I keep coming back to isn't even really, in my opinion, that great of a read. I just love the character work so much, and it's got one of my all-time favorite Star Wars quotes. But this is Master and Apprentice. The Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi novel. It's a novel. Claudia Gray is getting a lot of love on this podcast right now. But it's Claudia Gray just absolutely crushed the dynamic of Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think it's like 8 years before The Phantom Menace. Like I said, it's not a rip-roaring, fun Star Wars adventure. It is very much it's kind of one political problem they're having to deal with. There are still lightsabers and fighting and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it is very much a meditation on the Force and how it works and how Qui-Gon sees it and how Obi-Wan sees it. And he gives this one really, really metal quote. This is, also Matt's opportunity to crap on Grey Jedi again. But Qui-Gon says in that novel, I don't choose and I think I just put it in the comments today on our short that we put out. But it says, I don't choose the light to win some sort of cosmic game. I choose it because it is the light. That he's just, for a long time, people were like, Qui-Gon Jinn's the ultimate Grey Jedi. And then Claudia Gray and New Canon doubled down on, no, he is not. He is just an actual Jedi. And he's one of the few that
everyone
gets it
else
right.
is a Grey Jedi.
Yes, I fundamentally believe that the Jedi of the prequel trilogy are much closer to what a Grey Jedi would actually be in execution. But we've talked about this enough. We're eventually going to have a Grey Jedi episode, and I'll just save all this for that. So Master and Apprentice is my honorable mention, but my tie for my favorite Star Wars canon novel. The first one's Lost Stars. The second one is Light of the Jedi.
Oh, I don't think I've read that one.
That's the first novel of the High Republic Publishing Initiative. It's written by Charles Sewell, who fans of the podcast will know that I have a deep, deep man crush on. He and I feel exactly the same about what Star Wars is. Faster, more intense, And just keep it going, keep it simple, stupid, go, 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 go. Put characters in complex situations that either way, every single choice is life and death. And that is that novel. That novel begins with something called The Great Disaster, and it's an event that throws basically the entire galaxy into chaos. And mild spoilers for a book that is several years old, you begin that book with, like, every chapter you meet a character and they die. And then you meet another one, and they die. And then you meet a couple, and they die. And then you start to meet up with Jedi, and they're trying to stop more death from happening. It is one of the easiest and fastest reads that I've ever had, that also establishes so much, because it lays the entire groundwork for the High Republic, and it's making me want to reread it, and then, like we have threatened before, try and read all of the High Republic stuff. It's so much. But I love that book. And then, but I also couldn't choose it over Lost Stars. It's been a long time since I've read Lost Stars, but it's one of my favorite books. It is Romeo and Juliet, like Zach said. It is also fast, high, fun, full speed ahead adventure. But, just the type of canon storytelling that I love, that I always think is fun, and it's been a long time since I've read it, but it's got to be 10 times in that book that characters that you've been following for a couple hundred pages or so, all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, they are directly off screen of A New Hope right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Vader's right there, and they're over here, and they're hearing a conversation that I first saw when I was like 5 years old. And it's so silly, but you get to see basically the whole original trilogy from their perspective, but the book also never loses sight on them as characters. They are always more important than what's happening, but you get to see what's happening from their perspective. Like that, it's obvious. I wouldn't call it a spoiler. The characters both know people that died on the Death Star. And you get to see kind of a thing of where the Death Star was covered up as to what actually happened. They're like, wait, did we destroy Alderaan? And they're like, no, that couldn't have happened. That's rebel propaganda. That's not true. I love that book, and it ends, like you said, Battle of Jakku. It ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Because if I remember,
we still haven't gotten the second book.
Well, and Claudia Gray has given different quotes as to whether or not that'll happen. But then her and Charles Sewell are one of the several writers that are doing the High Republic right now, and have been for the last couple of years. It is entirely possible that now that the sequel trilogy has all come and gone, and we're a little deep into the Mandoverse and stuff, and then High Republic is over, she might go back and give us Lost Stars 2, and we'll see kind of this Mandoverse. Oh, wait. Yeah. The Mandoverse perspective from Sienna Ray and I can't remember his name.
Thane Kyrell.
That's the one. Yeah, I love that book. If you're turned off by it being referred to as Star Wars Romeo and Juliet, I get that. It is, in my opinion, the best version of that you could have. It's not like a kiddie romance novel. It is a young adult novel, but it is great. That's just all that I have to say about that. And then Light of the Jedi is so fun too. Let's go ahead and say, Zach, or do you listen to audiobooks still?
Yeah, I was about to say, hey, if you are like, I don't read books, which I have a hard time reading. I do, but I love an audiobook. You go to the gym, throw on an audiobook, or on your commute to work. I gotta say, the Star Wars, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. The Star Wars audiobooks are some of the best produced audiobooks out there, period. They put in the sounds, they put in the music, because music is so important in Star Wars. The voice actors that they get are so amazing. And last week we talked about Mark Thompson. He does an amazing Thrawn, if you like Thrawn. He also does a lot of these audiobooks. He's pretty big on the Star Wars. Both Lost Stars is amazing as an audiobook. Light of the Jedi, I started but didn't finish, but it's still a great audiobook, because I was like, wait, everybody's dying, and then I got busy. But I have one more honorable mention. If you want a really great Star Wars audiobook, the episode 4 from a certain point of view is one of the best Star Wars audiobooks out there, because every chapter is read by pretty big name celebrity. John Hamm does Boba Fett.
That's right.
And it's really fun because it goes through the entire episode 4, but all from the side character views. Like, there's a whole chapter on the like little bat creature in the cantina, like, and you get to learn about his life and how he's tread upon and stuff like that. But it's really, really fun.
Right on.
So that's my pitch for Star Wars audiobooks.
Yeah. Well, yes, and I would also say the Star Wars audiobooks are really, really fun. I'm on the same lifestyle that I have a really hard time sitting down and reading. My mind is always going a million miles a minute, but if I can have an audiobook on while I'm running or while I'm at the gym or whatever, then it's great, and it's like a movie in your mind. But I was going to say, Zach, are you listening to anything right now? Like, not in this moment, but are you working through a book?
I am working through an actual book, physical book, which is why it's taking me so long. But it is not Star Wars related. It is fantasy related, though.
Ooh.
It is Threads of Power, which is part of the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. If you like high fantasy magic, Darker Shades of Magic is one of my favorite series of all time. It takes place in four different London universes. And each London has a different level of magic, and there's one person who can walk in between them all. And it's kind of like a very fun, high fantasy, kind of piratey at points adventure.
Cool.
And Threads of Power is the 4th book, which we didn't think we were going to get a 4th book. It's also by V.E. Schwab, who also does the Vicious series, which is all superheroes, but from her point of view, where in that series, near-death experiences are what give you superpowers, and depending on what your last thoughts were during that near-death experience, it manifests the powers that you get, and it's told from a villain's perspective. Villainous, I think, is the first book in that series. So, also great audiobooks.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Well, I was trying to set you up for something else, but you might have just sold a book. But
yeah.
I was going to say, what if we go ahead and say that you and I, once you're done reading what you're reading,
yeah,
we're going to work our way through Light of the Jedi, and then soon we'll do a Light of the Jedi review. And
Sure.
if nothing else, okay, we're making our pact now. We're putting our hands together. If nothing else, let's review the High Republic adult novels, because I think there's
Sure.
only I think it's between 4 and 6 of those. There's a bunch of YA novels and so many comics and all that other stuff. But I think it is feasible that we could work our way through the big thick adult books, because all that to say, it's about to finish its run, this whole several year long publishing initiative. Charles Soule wrote the first one, Light of the Jedi, and he is writing the last one, Trials of the Jedi. I think that's what it's called. And I saw an interview with Star Wars Explained the other day on YouTube with Charles Soule at DragonCon, where he said he structured the book like I just thought this was really interesting. So I'm going to shamelessly fangirl Charles Soule for a moment. He said he structured the book like a cyclone, in that he's tying in all of these stories that have been going for years, and that they're all kind of spinning out of control, and it's huge, and it's all over the place, and it's all getting tied in together into really one or two very, very small, very intimate, very emotional moments, that everything you have been reading for years is coming down to a couple characters making really difficult decisions, and that's like the heart of the whole thing. There's all this stuff that's spinning out of control and going faster and faster and faster and never stopping, and you're constantly seeing something new, but it's all going to come down to a little bit.
Yeah.
So, anyway, and the way that he pitched it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I am in fact still madly in love with Charles Soule as a creative.
Yeah.
So, and if we get him on the podcast, it'll be funny because I'll just be like, the whole time.
I think we have a ways to go before we can get that level of guest, but
hey, like
never
you
know.
said, you are a wizard. We make magic.
Yeah.
Of course, maybe we should delete this clip or Charles Soule won't come on the podcast. But anywho, so real quick, Zach, we were concerned about time today. Do you think we have time to do this last thing before we also go into the mailbag? Okay.
Sure.
Do you want to set this up, or shall I?
Go ahead and set it up, and I'll do the mailbag.
Cool. Alrighty. So, this was a something that I saw on Reddit that I thought was really cool. It's on the subreddit Star Wars EU. And the question is basically, what if the Jedi discovered Order 66? Specifically, the Reddit user Dragonic Overlord posted Operation Nightfall, which was Anakin and the 501st's attack on the Jedi Temple.
Yeah.
But he sets up this situation. Operation Nightfall is about to commence in 10 minutes. You have until then to organize the Jedi Temple's defenses and foil the invasion. What do you do? So basically, like, just somehow the Jedi get tipped off minutes before Anakin Skywalker and the entire 501st Clone Trooper Division are about to march on the Jedi Temple. Do they make it? What do you do? Zach, what are your thoughts on this just kind of fun little Star Wars what-if situation?
Yeah, I think it's super fun. My first thing is there are hangars in the Jedi Temple. You get as many of the pilots to the ships as possible, and you have air support against the Anakin and his army that are just walking up the steps, you know? You just bomb, 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 boom, 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 dun, dun, dun. I think if they had, well, they had to have some sort of knowledge, but I guess if you knew exactly what was going to happen, because, like, they're walking up the steps with an army, so you think that something, you know, somebody would probably be like, what is going on? But yeah, I think you set up your defenses. I think you close the doors, you know, and you have a little bit more of a battle plan. I think the reason it succeeds is that they're so caught off guard, you know. So I think that 10 minutes could make or break it. You know, you also get all the younglings to ships and get them off-world, you know, with, you know, probably Jocasta Nu and the entire library, you know. That would be my like, if I'm in charge of the Jedi during that time, I get 10 minutes, get all available pilots to whatever starfighters we have, you know, get air support, close the doors, create a front line, then get everybody else out.
Yeah. What
about you?
Our plans are basically the same. I think that one way or another, the storytelling is set up that just one way or another, most of the Jedi are about to go down.
Yeah.
I think it's a last stand for a lot of them, kind of like you said, get the most Jedi and younglings out that you can. But part of the reason that I think that no matter what, this is going to be a major loss, we know that Palpatine had saboteurs in the temple. In the novel that came out, I think it was earlier this year or last, whatever, Rise of the Red Blade, which was the story of how one Jedi in particular became an Inquisitor. One of the first things that kind of sows her doubt in the Jedi Order, she starts having this conversation with a non-Force sensitive in one of the gardens. He's just like kind of a groundskeeper in the Jedi Temple, and you find out later he was working with Sidious. And Sidious was just kind of like, go in there and just kind of just sow dissent. Just put out feelers, see if you can find anybody that might join the team.
Yeah.
Because we also know that the Inquisitors are ready and rearing to go within a year of Star Wars Episode 3. We know that from different canon sources. And then, you know, according to Henry Gilroy, one of the writers of Star Wars Rebels, I saw this at a panel on some convention, the Grand Inquisitor from Star Wars Rebels, who was a Jedi Temple Guard, he betrayed and murdered all of the Temple Guards, like, at the outset of this battle, and that's why you don't see any of them. The real reason, and because somebody asked him, why are there no Temple Guards in Star Wars Episode 3? And the real reason is that they hadn't been created yet.
Yeah.
But they talked about, and he proposed a theory. He said Grand Inquisitor was probably in on it already and killed them all. But, however, I think this would have been a really cool, I mean, not a cool battle because a lot of people died, but the Charles Soule comic, speaking of Jocasta Nu, the Darth Vader run, established that there are, like, old Jedi super weapons within the vaults of the Jedi Temple. Like,
she has the lightsaber gun.
Yeah, Jocasta Nu fights Darth Vader, and at one point she puts, it's either her lightsaber or a lightsaber in this old, like, rifle. She, like, loads it in like a bullet, and then is firing like a lightsaber beam at Darth Vader. It's only good for, like, I think 2, maybe 3 shots, but it's like Cyclops from X-Men's, like his beam, where it's just like destroying everything that it's aimed at. We also, the only other thing that could have potentially really helped is something called battle meditation, which is an ability that does mildly exist in canon. It comes into play. It's not called that. But it comes into play in Light of the Jedi a bit, where the Jedi kind of just like, they set up an empathic link, and they kind of just join their force together. It does not work to the same degree as Legends, where it was like literal mind control. Like in in Heir to the Empire and the original Thrawn books from the early 90s, there's a Dark Jedi villain that literally mind controls all of the stormtroopers and officers on the Imperial ships so that all of their timing is completely synchronized. And he's like, don't talk to me, leave me alone, because he's controlling, like, he's basically mind tricking, like, hundreds of people at once to do. So it's not to that degree. But yeah, I think that kind of one way or another, most of them are wrecked. But I didn't think about that, yeah, they have starships, so they would probably just bomb
the 501st.
Anakin and the 501st. Yeah. But, you know, it's kind of an opportunity for a super fun little what-if situation. Yeah. But alrighty, so moving on into the mailbag, I'm going to toss the baton to you, dude.
All right, this is from Brian Lawson as well. He sent us a whole bunch of questions, so thank you, Brian, for the content. His question that we chose this week is, what are your most and least favorite quotes from the franchise? Matt, we'll start with you.
This is right in my wheelhouse. As someone that loves to write things, has yet to have been published yet, or even really tried, but I am a fan of the written word. Well, I got a question. Do you want to give our least first? Each of our least?
Let's do least first, and then we'll do most.
So, my least favorite from the entire franchise is a line that is repeated 3 times. They fly now? They fly now? They fly now. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. They've always flown.
It's peak strange writing. That is a joke that I don't understand how it made it through being written, being performed, being edited without someone going, I don't necessarily think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
So anyway, they fly now. Zach, to you.
My least favorite is McClunky. I don't know why you add it. If you don't know, McClunky was added to, I think, the latest special edition. When Greedo dies, like when he gets shot by a blaster, George is like, let's have him say McClunky, you know? And so it's like, why? It was already a great scene. You've already messed with it with making Han's like weird head move. Like, just let him shoot first and let him die. Like, we don't need McClunky.
Yeah. If you don't know what Zach's talking about, going back to 1997, when the Star Wars Special Edition came out, originally, Han Solo just straight up shot Greedo in Star Wars Episode 4, just blew him away. It was like, yes, I bet you have. Bam! Shoots him, dead, done. Sorry about the mess, and leaves. And George, as he always has since the movie first came out, there have been edits since the 80s to all of the original trilogy. George liked to tinker when he was still involved, liked to make the movie closer to what he originally intended, and has always changed it. That scene of them shooting at each other has been edited, I think, 6 different times. Now it's down to the point where they kind of shoot at the same time, and it just makes it just kind of more confusing as to what happens. But so Greedo, they added in a final word. Han says, yes, I bet you have. And Greedo goes, McClunky. And then they shoot at each other. Apparently, it's funny, my perspective of all that was Disney Plus went live, and I got on Twitter, and all of Star Wars Twitter was McClunky? McClunky? What is this? McClunky? What is... It's because everybody pulled up Disney Plus, put on Star Wars Episode 4 for the first time on streaming, and we're all reacting to that. And I was like, is everybody having a collective stroke? What is going on? And when I finally watched it, I was like, what? And apparently, They added that for what was going to be the Star Wars Episode 4 3D release. In 2012, they started re-releasing movies in 3D. The only one that came out was Phantom Menace. I remember going to see it at midnight for fun and being annoyed that there were more people at the theater to see The Vow with Channing Tatum than to see Star Wars Episode 1. And I remember talking to people about it, and they were all like, well, it is the Phantom Menace. So again, the way the prequels have blown up in the last 12 years, now it would probably be packed because all the people that loved it when they were little are grown. Yeah. But anyway, so George likes to tinker. And one last thing about McClunky. Sorry, dude, you set me off. There's a absolutely fantastic behind-the-scenes moment from The Mandalorian with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni just like basically playing with ideas on the set. It's the scene from the premiere of Mando Season 2 where he's got the Cyclops guy strung up upside down on the street lamp, and he goes to shoot out the street lamp, and then because it gets dark, all the monsters come in, right? Jon Favreau looks at Dave Filoni, and as he's standing there with his gun, kind of looking up at the lamp and trying to figure out how the shot goes, and he goes, hey, if it means curtains, should he say McClunky? And Dave instantly just starts laughing and is like, no. Just no. Please don't do that. It's so funny. And Jon Favreau, just the chaos, and he's like, why not? Let's do it. Like, if it means curtains, let's make it cool. Like, if it means you're done, McClunky. Like, I kind of wish that would have happened. I like the rebel that is George Lucas going, well, he's going to say McClunky. It's funny. He's going to do it. So anyway, well, all right.
And what is your favorite Star Wars quote then?
I've got a cheat. I have two. Mm-hmm. And unintentional segue, sticking with the Phantom Menace. Qui-Gon Jinn's "Your focus determines your reality" is an all-time good quote. And then similarly, the beginning of Yoda's kind of speech in Episode 1, "Fear is the path to the dark side." Those two quotes not only sum up what George Lucas' Star Wars is about, they sum up Anakin's journey. Yeah. Your focus determines your reality. Anakin is focused on preventing, quote-unquote, bad things from happening. Right? He is afraid of losing people, and because that is purely what drives him, his reality becomes that they are lost. You know, it's the self-fulfilling prophecy that we've seen in a million stories, but that Anakin is obsessed with preventing Padme's death, and ultimately you could argue that he's the one that kills her. Right? Or at least he loses her because he is so obsessed with not losing her. I love those two quotes, and Star Wars being about choosing selflessness and not selfishness, which was always the George Lucas message, it's summed up best in those two moments, and that is still, as silly as it sounds, those two quotes are things that I turn to in my day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. When you're upset about something and you're just holding on to anger or whatever, your focus determines your reality, man. The problem's going to come, it's going to go, but just what are you focused on right now? You can choose to be upset, or you can choose to try and find a solution and focus on something more positive. And then fear is the path to the dark side. If you're operating out of fear, it's very likely bad things are going to happen. Mm-hmm. So there's my answers. Zach? What is your most favorite quotes from the franchise?
Well, I had a couple. I mean, it's such an iconic show, so there's lots of them. Focus determines your reality is one of my favorites. Also, we are what they grow beyond. From Yoda. Just like, you know, in teaching and in passing down things, I think that's such a beautiful quote. But the one that I quote the most in my day-to-day life, I say it all the time, my partner and I say it all the time, is, "I lied." Darth Vader, when he's like, "This wasn't part of," it's from Episode 5, Darth Vader, Lando goes, "This wasn't part of the contract," and he goes, "I lied from the very beginning."
Well, he did.
I think he says I lied.
Oh, sorry, man. I don't want it. I am altering the deal. You shall pray I don't alter it any further.
Oh, sorry. It wasn't from A New Hope. It's from sorry, that's where my brain wants it to be. It's actually from Star Wars Force Unleashed. He goes, "You agreed to stay away," and Darth Vader goes, "I lied."
I lied. Yeah. It's a great acting moment from Sam Whooper. You agreed. No.
Yeah. I also, the other one I quote all the time is, "You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy."
Every self-respecting Star Wars fan has said that when they walk into a bar at least once.
Yeah.
I might not say it very loud, depending on how much I do or do not want to annoy my wife, but I absolutely have said it. Never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. Well, okay, so we did it. We've given you our favorite quotes. We talked about a lot of little random tidbits today, but I look forward to being able to give my Star Wars Outlaws review. I hope my review isn't as simple as, well, the game was hard and I was annoyed, so I'm not going to play it anymore.
You're going to love the characters, you are.
I'm sure. I'm very excited. I'm being good. I'm being a good boy and not buying it yet. I will spoil one thing for those of you that haven't played it yet, because I saw this on Twitter and I about lost all self-control, and I came close to literally setting everything down, sprinting to Best Buy, buying it, and, but apparently at some point in this game, you can play Sabacc with Lando Calrissian, and oh my gosh, I was like, wait, what? That's so stupid. That's not something I ever thought I'd be able to do in anything. I might truly my plan in this game is to figure out where that scene takes place and then go back, restart, and literally just only do things to make money so that I can sit across from Lando Calrissian and play him in Sabacc for hours. Because that's the type of nerd that I am.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait to get to Hondo and to Kira, and there's so many great little things in this game that I can't wait to play. And
I'm just excited. I'm excited that okay. So here's another question. Sorry, I should have said this in the review, and then I'll let you go. But ever since Red Dead Redemption came out, I have wanted a Star Wars Red Dead Redemption. Is this that?
I mean, kind of. It even has the slowdown mechanic where you can hit 3 different people and then
again. Fantastic. I'm buying this thing. Sold. It's since that game came out, I was like, "What? Someone should do this for Star Wars."
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, man. Any closing words?
Your focus determines your reality. You are a wizard. We are all wizards. The magic that you make amongst each other makes you a wizard. That's my closing.
Right on. I like it. Where can the people find you?
Where can the people find me? Zachisfaction on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. But the best way is to email us at forceofothersradio@gmail.com.
Yes, send your questions and we'll answer them on the show. You can find me at Twitter and Instagram at Matt Beutner, Beutner. Good luck with your spelling. You can also listen to me on the Acting Up with GTC podcast to hear about my day job. Okay, and now that all of that has been said, and remember, the force of others will be with you.
Always. The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast.